Welcome! You are tuning in to Around the Table with the Judges Podcast, presented by PropertyGuru Property Report, the official magazine of Asia Property Awards and Asia Real Estate Summit. This episode is brought to you by Esquire Philippines, the official media partner of PropertyGuru Philippines Property Awards 2022. In this special series, you will get to know our respected judges across our awards markets, from Sri Lanka to Australia to Greater Niseko, Japan. We will also be diving into the nitty-gritty of the judging process and figure out why they are the most deserving to judge leading industry players. Hi, my name is Tina Ryan, and I'm pleased to welcome you to another special episode with our judges. It was a privilege to have spent time with the Cambodian panel last week. This time around, the distinguished judging panel of the PropertyGuru Philippines Property Awards, now on its 10th year, have graced us with their presence. To begin, may we request our judges to kindly introduce themselves, starting with our newly elected chairperson. Take it away, Ms. Cindy.
Hello. Hi, I'm Cindy Tan Harabata of Tahara Hospitality, and I'm the chairperson for the Philippine Property Awards.
Hello, I'm Jean De Castro, CEO of ESCA. We're an engineering consultancy firm that specializes in technology-driven engineering design and construction management.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raymond Rufino. I'm the CEO of NEO. We are an office building owner, developer, and manager in the Bonifacio Global City of the Philippines.
Hi, I'm Eric Mongosing. I'm the CEO of Metro Development Managers, Inc. MDMI is a boutique consulting company specializing in development management.
Thank you, judges. Great seeing you, Ms. Cindy. And so it's great seeing you as well, Sir Eric. Okay, so let's start off with a simple one. What is it that you do as a judge? Let's have our chairperson answer first.
I think, we ensure fairness in the judging process for each entry per category. And I think through the years, we've also helped shape the awards, the property awards. We actually have 10 judges this year. At one point, it's also, of course, a 10th year anniversary. So we have representatives from hospitality, architecture, engineering and design, sustainability, branding, and also experts in office, commercial, and residential development.
Thank you, Ms. Cindy. Ms. Jean?
Yeah, so we are the independent judging panel, and we find the best of the best. So together we discuss, select, and agree on which of these developments, kind of become now the embodied a high standard that we want to see in the real estate industry. So we look at the projects, we review the documentation against the criteria, and we see how it's also being implemented and how the market responds to these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Jean. Raymond?
Yeah, I think I agree. Just to add, I think it's very important when you talk about awarding that you have not only just very transparent and fair awarding, but really an involvement by good quality judges who can really vet projects and understand, what are the good points, what are the negative points, what are the strengths, the flaws. The judges get very, very involved. So it's required that whenever projects are visited, whether it's virtual or in person, that at least 2 to 3 judges are represented on each visit. And I think that's very, very critical. We're not just looking at pictures on a desktop. We're actually getting deep into each project, really trying to understand the nuts and bolts to really see if a project is deserving to win an award or not.
Thank you, Raymond. And lastly, Sir Eric.
Well, I think Cindy, Jean, and Raymond have said it all, but let me just put it simply. We evaluate the entries based on a set of criteria for each category that's pre-agreed, and we each make a judgment on the entries and rank them accordingly. That's it.
Okay, so last year, you all evaluated entries virtually. How difficult was the process compared to on-site visits?
Well, Tina, even prior to the pandemic, so we have been doing all these virtual tours with all the developers for 2 years. But prior to that, we've been doing this for about 8 years already. And so I guess I'm one of the longest judges to have actually stayed with the whole process for close to 10 years now. But one of the things we recognized, let's say for the past 2 years, was that we did, of course, everyone recognizes because of the pandemic, there was like a shortfall also in terms of sales uptake and also construction delays. But at one point, we recognize that a lot of developers also have pivoted to, let's say, revised plans. We actually recognize more green spaces. It was an opportunity for them to change some of the spaces, and also looked at what the consumer demand was and also came up with affordable payment terms. So I think at one point, even there was a slowdown. You also saw, a pickup, especially last year. And last year, I believe, was one of the best years that we've had for the property awards.
Considering it was it's still a pandemic. Okay, who would like to answer again?
I can go next. I think the virtual versus the actual physical
On-site.
inspection. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm a bit old school in terms of I always feel real estate has to be walked, right? You have to experience real estate firsthand, physically, because we are talking about a development which has so many aspects to it, which is very, very hard to do virtually, right? I guess the way I would put it is virtual is probably easier on the judges because it's more convenient, easier in terms of time, but I think harder in terms of really evaluating the project. Because when you're a real estate professional and you walk through a project, you're able to see right away and get to feel the project. Whereas if you're looking at it, through a PowerPoint presentation or a video or pictures, you're not getting the same, I would say, depth of experience. And so I'm a big fan of just visiting the properties in person, even if logistically that takes a lot more out of us as judges. We have to fly. Sometimes we have to do overnights because we have to visit the sites. And over the past few years, an exciting development has been the growth of projects and potential awardees who are outside of Metro Manila. So we have to fly to these provincial cities and locations to be able to visit these projects. But I think visiting them in person really also gives us a chance to really, understand and get to know these projects intimately.
Thank you, Sir Raymond. For Jean and Sir Eric, how do you make sure that the projects are judged fairly without being there physically?
Yeah, so I think as all of us, though, being in this field, and I love our judging panel because we all represent different segments of the industry, but our professional experience. But it's still, all of us kind of want to touch things. We want to feel it. We want to touch it. Sometimes you want to smell it. You kind of want to see the lighting and all of that. So it was definitely challenging. So, but we had to also adapt. Now, as Cindy said, everyone had to adapt to the situation. So in our case, just to be able to continue to judge it fairly, even not seeing it physically, we had to be more deliberate with our questioning. We really had to ask very detailed questions and also require actual photos. So we'll usually get the rendered photos, right? But we'll we'll look for the actual progress photos at the site. We'll ask them questions, just to be sure that we're also getting the answers that we're looking for to be able to judge the work with the criteria that we've been given.
Sir Eric?
Okay, the virtual version does not allow us really to see the project or the entry in person to scrutinize more closely the quality and workmanship of the development, versus the digital images sent to us by the developer. So there's greater judgmental in the process based largely on the information we get regarding the entry and how the developer's representatives respond to our questions. So what we do is we look at alternatives or substitute parameters to the actual viewing of the entries, such as perhaps saleability of the project, who is the general contractor, the architect, etc. The quality of the team has certain predisposition on the quality of the development. So we look at that.
But Cindy, Raymond, would you like to add to that?
I think what we also recognized was that although they showed us some virtual tours, but there were some virtual tours that were real time. And there were some entries and we all enjoyed seeing it, and some have actually been on site. So you see the progress year after year.
Okay, so I guess I can move on to question number 4. With that in mind, as respected experts in your field, with your own preferences, how do you remove professional bias when judging?
Well, there's 10 of us. So you can just imagine all the discussion that goes into the conversation per
The
entry.
debates, not just discussion.
Yeah,
Cindy has a difficult job again, Chair,
that's true.
managing those
But
discussions.
we also have HLB, which is the audit, the audit company who kind of monitors all that. But the other part also, we also have to disclose if there are any conflicts. And it's inevitable that we do have, the entries could also be potentially our client, whether or not we're working on the same project. But given that you also have, the entries, we're also quite particular about who the developers are. You can be like all the big names, the conglomerates, but we also encourage a lot of the new breeds of developers, because we want to see a lot of innovation that comes into play. But one thing good is that I guess we also self-check everyone else. Yeah, but HLB has actually they've been very, judicious when it comes to really, making sure that there's no bias, there's no conflict of interest from any of the entries.
So we don't participate if we see that there's a potential conflict. If we've worked on the project, then we don't participate in directly, judging that particular project, to keep it also credible and transparent.
I think it's also worthwhile to mention that as you judge, the more you judge, the more years you've been judging, the more you are able to be, I would say, more objective. I think when you're a first-time judge, or maybe your first 1 or 2 years, the personal bias is a little bit difficult to overcome. You just carry that with you. But as you start to judge over more years and you start to see a lot more projects, then you really start to kind of open up the objectivity in your head. I remember, before, you just always think, oh, it's a bigger developer, probably going to be a better quality project compared to this company we've never heard of. And then you get surprised that, hey, this up and coming developer actually is delivering a higher quality project than some of these big name developers. So your initial bias, kind of, it's time to question that, right? You come in with this bias, but then you realize that, hey, that does not necessarily hold true. And I think as you judge more and more years, and we have the benefit of having some judges who have been here, like Cindy has mentioned, for many years, I think that mix of, some are new judges, some are been here for a while. I think I've been judging, I don't know, I don't even remember how many, 6-7 years, I think, already. So that mix of sort of judging tenure, I think, is also good to kind of help with the bias, right?
Sir Raymond. And Sir Eric, would you like to add to that?
Personally, I just remind myself that there are governance rules and compliances that we have to abide to. So we try to avoid potential conflict of interest. And as Cindy said earlier, we need to disclose if their personal and professional relationship with the developers, if any. So with that, we just go on with our work.
So without revealing the developer or project name, can you describe the most impressive solution or material or process that was implemented during your years of judging?
Yeah, I think it's so. I can start off this one. I mentioned earlier, more than an impressive specific project, what I find quite impressive as a trend, really, throughout my years of judging, has been how the small provincial developers have been able to deliver high quality projects at par or even better than the traditional large developers from Metro Manila. And it was for me quite surprising, because I mentioned earlier, you have this traditional bias where these big names who have been doing real estate for decades tend to think that all of their projects are great and all of their projects are fantastic, and that the up and coming ones, they're learning the ropes, they don't really know this yet, they're kind of feeling their way, they're not going to deliver. And yet, so surprising, and this is really why I love being a judge, is because when you start to visit the projects, you start to see, wait a minute, these up and coming guys are really spending much more time understanding their customer in the way that, for example, take residential, right? You understand, the way the units are laid out, it's driven by the functionality and appeal to the user rather than some of the other larger developers where, oh, this was done to cut cost, to save money on construction, right? So you start to really see some of this, I guess, differences, which I thought for me was quite good to see that the smaller provincial developers really being able to up their game and really compete shoulder to shoulder with a lot of these large, big, traditional developers. And that, as a trend, is continuing. I think we saw it, sort of start several years ago, but they really are going from strength to strength. And I find that among all of the different trends I've seen, that's probably one of the most impressive trends I've experienced being a judge.
There's one per Remo, if you remember, for affordable housing, yung rain catchment in private homes. So I felt even if they were not gearing towards any formal certification, they did it on their own. So I think it was like one of the winners as well. And I could remember two concrete ones. The other one would be maybe about 5 years ago. 6 years ago, there was a developer who actually have planned an invested on electric battery charging stations. And that was way before, that was really way before all these electric cars was really, because you see now electric cars, yung hybrid models, but she was like more like, thinking of what could be the future, not only trend, but, innovation and people would actually be using. And we just saw the building a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, in my case naman, because because of our work also, being more tech driven, it's always impressive for me to see how they're adapting new or innovative processes or sometimes even new materials. So whether they're using, vertical design, they're using construction technology, modular construction that allows for faster construction. So that's very interesting for me. But also on the business side, seeing how creative the business models have been, and how they sell, lease, manage property, even in terms of whether it's in terms of ownership and financing. So those have been particularly interesting for me that I always tend to remember.
Yeah, just to add what Sheena said, we've seen over the years developers and contractors adopting precast and prefab technology, which have actually improved a lot on the quality and the workmanship of the finished product, and also the adaptation of developers using green technology, pretty much like what Raymond is doing with Neo.
Oh, yeah.
And this is really becoming very popular amongst the buyers.
Awesome. Now, this next question is kind of tough. Like, how has there ever been a situation where the judges' votes were split between two candidates? How did you guys handle it?
Yeah,
all the time.
A lot of times. It's usually like the best developer. And we've also worked on regions, like you have the best developer in Visayas, but of course the toughest is if you're representing the Philippines. So which means if the entries would also get into the the Asia Pacific Awards, it's totally a different game field already.
That's why sometimes the meetings can be quite long because while we agree, I would say there's agreement most of the time, but there will be certain specific awards where the judges will be split, and we work on consensus, right? So we kind of have to spend the time, and that'll be Cindy's job. Yeah, now that she's our chairperson for this year, managing the judges and trying to achieve consensus on every single award, right? So that's going to be, unfortunately, sometimes it's a time-consuming process, but we've managed over the past years. We've always managed, even if it takes a little bit longer, we'll eventually get there, right? So.
Yeah, and that's when we go down to the details, right? I mean, that's when everyone else starts bringing out their scorecards. What was it really that you liked? Because there was a lot, you have to balance a lot of these different criteria. So yeah, but I agree, it has happened more often than not. But it's always interesting discussion among the judges.
Who makes the final decision, though? Is it the chairperson?
No.
It's consensus.
In my 4 years as a judge.
There's a dispute already.
In my 4 years as a judge, we always end up unanimous. after
Yeah.
a long argument.
Yeah, kasi fair naman fair din the chairman. Yeah.
Yeah, we always also have to convince each other, right, of our stand or position. We all have to agree on it. Yeah.
Okay, now then next question, how important is it that we continue to recognize businesses that remain committed to corporate social responsibility or CSR or ESG, environmental social governance?
Yeah, super important. I can probably start off. I think it's very, very important because, for real estate developers, more often than not, we get recognized or we get judged based on the design of our projects, the execution on the physical side. Oh, the building looks good. Oh, the finishing quality is good. It looks attractive, etc. But a lot of developers really spend time and effort to focus on being a good corporate citizen, right? Giving back, whether that's in CSR or ESG. But those activities, unfortunately, don't get as much recognition as the actual structures that we build, right? So I think it's important to recognize the efforts being made by these developers, because when you do that, you inspire others to try and undertake their own efforts. And we live in a country where whatever CSR focus or whatever ESG focus you choose to go into, I mean, the Philippines needs work on so many fronts. So there's so much work that has to be done, so many gaps that need to be addressed. So I think it's important we recognize this, celebrate the work being done, but also put a bit of pressure on others within the industry to try and push what they can do to also make that positive impact.
Yes, and at one point also, CSR is not just supposed to be used for marketing. It should form part of any company's DNA. So yeah, I think we've also been responsible in terms of pushing other developers. We've been such a strong voice in pushing sustainability in all developments.
For Eric?
Yeah.
Would like to add to that?
Well, it adds a new dimension to the judging criteria, not directly related to the entries, but more regarding the developer who is behind the project and how it is managing its affairs within the greater business community and the society at large. Therefore, it's very important.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's guilt in terms of how much the construction sector contributes to climate crisis, right, to waste. And I think by recognizing these efforts, one, we can inform the market, right, that these are the efforts being made. We can also bring attention to it and encourage investment in projects that embrace these types of initiatives. And also, it's a good reflection of the market, right? The new generation of buyers now, of consumers, also have these in mind. So I think it's only right that we also recognize this in the awards.
This year, you added several new categories, including Best Integrated Work from Home Development, a segment that was on the rise during the pandemic. But with economies slowly returning to normalcy, do you think this demand will prosper post-COVID?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have not only work from home, but you also have the work from resort, work from the beach. And with the setup of companies right now, my God, it's not only the companies, but the people who work. They're used to hybrid setup, and companies have actually opened up and say, yes, I mean, for you to also retain staff. I mean, this is really to stay. I mean, this kind of concept it's no longer a concept. I've been practicing work from everywhere. So I think it has actually gained more popularity, and people do realize, oh, it's possible. I mean, and Zoom is, and all the virtual has actually become part of our lives. We've also become more efficient that way.
Wi-Fi
Yeah,
is
agree.
life.
Yeah, I agree with Cindy. I think that the name of the game now is flexibility, right? And so I think whatever real estate project you do in the future, it used to be that everything was pigeonholed before. Oh, you're just doing a residential unit for a student. This is what they do. This is all that you're going to put in there. It's very, very, very specific. I think more and more developers are going to try to build in more flexibility to the way, the way assets are designed, operated. The functionality of all of these is gonna be more diverse. so that you can start to do a lot more things with the same real estate.
And I think it gives. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I guess it also gives an additional challenge, right, to office spaces now, right? You kind of have to up the ante to get people back to the office, even with a hybrid setup. So it also kind of changes the game for office spaces now, which I would find very interesting. As Raymond said, it's flexibility as well as what are the other engagement activities or other elements that they put in now to the office to be able to embrace this new type of workforce that we're seeing. Whether or not everyone will embrace it, I think it's still out, right? There have been some push and pull from big companies here and abroad, but in terms of being able to be more flexible, as I would agree with that, in adapting to any new thing that comes about again. That would be very, very important for all our real estate spaces.
Yeah, agree with all of them, Tina. In fact, as in consultancy, they've actually been doing that for the longest time, no? But in particular, more for commercial developments, and I guess in respect of BPOs and call centers, where the work from home configuration has been proven to be effective and efficient.
Yeah. Maybe Tina, another part, because I'm in the hospitality side naman. We're designing and also developing new lives. We call it, of course, lifestyle hotels, but a lot of the lifestyle hotels now, we incorporate the co-live or even co-work space. So in the hotel, it's essential from design alone and planning, we incorporate now flexible spaces, because in the end, if things and another pandemic comes, it makes the asset more viable to other segment or other industries. So all the planning, I believe, not only in terms of commercial, but residential, even residential. A lot of what we're planning these days also includes now those flexi spaces.
I just want to work where my dog is.
Oh yes,
Look at that.
Most of our projects now are dog friendly.
Oh.
And also, you have to also make sure that you have enough space for your plants.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, it was important for me to ask that question last year during an event. And it was more of like, why are there a limited number of developers who cater to residents with pets, even pre-pandemic? Because, I mean, we have to admit, a lot of people, they took in pets during the pandemic. It's what kept me sane. And I just don't think I can ever live without another pet. And it's sad that here in the Philippines, there's only a few developers who actually take in pets when I had to hide my dog for about a year.
Well, they said two, pets or air fryer.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, we received so many entries last year. How does it feel to have a vibrant market despite the outbreak?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that was a remarkable year, I'd say. And I think even PropertyGuru recognized that we've had the most entries and awards. And what can I say? I mean, that's Philippines. And just when we thought we were not going to bounce back, we did. And I think it's going to continue. I mean, I think I have to ask the other judges. I think it's going to continue. I mean, this year, it's like there's going to be a big comeback from everyone else. And I think we are also very excited to go out and do the site inspections.
But what happened last year was really in response to the pandemic. No?
Yeah.
I believe that this was more of a strategy resorted to by the developers to actually improve the visibility of the respective development projects. We shifted, developers actually shifted from face-to-face selling to digital marketing significantly and faster during the pandemic period.
And I remember we had a long discussion on that, right? Whether we were going to continue and push through even at the height of the pandemic, because you didn't want to be insensitive to what was happening. At the same time, I think everyone was in agreement that, we really had to also inject that type of energy and that push, because real estate will always be a key driver of the economy. So for me, it was it was just inspiring, right? To see how they rethought their projects, how they retooled, they recalibrated their strategy. So it was just so comforting to see that people were really kind of pushing and continue to thrive, even throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, I think the Philippine real estate has been quite resilient, and I agree with the judges, especially with what Cindy mentioned. This is a bounce back year. I think the momentum from last year is going to continue. Hopefully, we get a lot of entries again this year. People will be so busy trying to catch up on their projects. I hope they don't forget to join and participate in our awards this year. But it's definitely going to be an exciting year for the Philippine property sector.
Okay, we move on to question number 9. As experts in your respective fields and having been involved in the process for quite some time, why should developers and designers choose the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards program to showcase their work?
I think for me, there are a lot of different award programs, but I think the structure of the PropertyGuru Awards is probably one of the best. First off, it's free to join, right? I think the structure, some other awards, just to participate, you have to pay. Here, it's a free to join awards program, which means, if you don't win, then you don't have to pay anything. So the risk factor, I think, is quite low, where you're not going to be asked to overinvest, and you end up not getting any return for your investment. So I think that structure is great. I think the fact that also, other awards programs, they do tabletop reviews. They just look at the pictures and look at what you submit. I think the effort of the judges, as we mentioned earlier, to actually inspect sites physically and really spend time with the developers, the people involved in the project to fully assess and evaluate projects, adds a layer of governance and really quality in terms of the judging. So I think combining those factors really makes, if you win a Philippine Property Award or and you move on to the Asia Property Awards, if you win those awards, you are deserving to win those awards.
And in addition to that, the ability, the being able to compete internationally as well. So it's not just a local award, but you're able to compete on an international level. So that brings up, your standards you're measured against much higher standards. So I think that also helps bring the developer to an international scene, a global scene, and also brings the Philippines on the map much more visibly.
Raymond and Jean said it all, no? I think the Philippine Property Awards has evolved into the most prestigious real estate award in the country, not only in the country, if I may say, but also in Asia-wide. So it is the Miss Universe of the real estate property.
Oscars of all the awards.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we didn't get here in, it took time. It's also one of the longest property awards. And, all the judges that take the time and commitment to be part of it with we're all belonging to different fields. And I think that actually brings more credibility to the awards.
Okay, we have come to our conclusion with this episode. And since Ms. Cindy spoke last, may we have our chairperson invite the premier developers and designers in the country to participate in the 2022 edition of the PropertyGuru Philippines Property Awards.
Okay, so I'd just like to invite everyone, all developers and designers, to submit your entries. The deadline is going to be on August 5. And we do look forward to seeing all of you in the next coming months.
Thank you, Chairperson. Nominations are open until the 5th of August, so make sure to send in your entries on time. Now, submissions are accepted at asiapropertyawards.com. Once again, that's asiapropertyawards.com. Special shout out to our sponsors and partners this year: Platinum sponsor Kohler, Gold sponsor Boyce & Paints, Media partners Business World and Esquire Philippines, and official supervisor HLB. Once again, our deepest appreciation to Ms. Cindy and the rest of our judges for generously devoting your time and expertise to our awards program. Other notable members that are unable to join us today are Carlo Cordado, Jaime A. Cura, Kathleen Obsemea, Michelle Barreto, Philip Mariscal, and Richard Raimundo. There you have it, the distinguished judging panel of the Property Guru Philippines Property Awards. Once again, thank you for joining us in this special episode brought to you by Esquire Philippines, the official media partner of Property Guru Philippines Property Awards 2022. See you in the next one.